Do you want to learn about multifamily investing, but you just don't know where to start? You think you're too new. You think it's too overwhelming. Well, I have the event for you. It's called Multifamily Live, and it's happening this June 10th, 11th, and 12th, a 3-day event. And best of all, guys, it's virtual. You don't have to worry about, can I shake hands? Do I have to get on a plane? What's it mean? Am I afraid of COVID? None of that stuff. It's virtual. You can do it from your home. It's a 3-day event, and this event is really about teaching you how to invest in multifamily real estate. They want you to know how to achieve the, quote, quit your job passive income, right? By investing in large multifamily properties. Even if you're a new investor or if you're an experienced investor and you want to get into multifamily, this is the event you cannot miss. Guys, go and get your tickets now before they're gone. It's June 10th, 11th, and 12th this coming June. It's going to be amazing. I know the folks putting this on. I have talked to all of them. I know about their businesses. These are the smartest multifamily people in the nation. You must go get your tickets if you're interested in Multifamily Live before the ticket prices go up. As it gets closer to the event, it's going to go up. Here's how you get them. Go to bestrealestateevent.com. That's bestrealestateevent.com. Go check it out. Even if you're not sure, just go to the site, check it out, see if it looks like it's for you, and grab your tickets now. All right, guys, let's get on to it.
I quickly learned what it's like to be in a rental car, going from, one project, trying to quickly catch a red eye to get to another project that we had, trying to figure out how I'm going to come up with $60,000 and make payroll.
You're listening to the Just Start Real Estate Podcast. If you're serious about your real estate investing business and need real answers, you are in the right place. And now, your host, Mike Simmons.
All right, thank you for joining me today on Just Start Real Estate. I'm excited to have you here. Guys, if it's your first time here, welcome. If it's not your first time here, welcome to you too. I appreciate you being here, whether you're new or not. I just love having you here, and you've tuned in for a great one. I've got somebody on the show today whose podcast I have been on, and I liked him so much that I was excited to have him on this show for you. He's not a real estate guy, so to speak, but he's an entrepreneur who's had incredible success. He's lost everything. His health was in extreme jeopardy, and he has a great story about pushing too hard and what that can mean and how to avoid that. So he's an absolutely amazing person who has a phenomenal story. Like, get ready, because this story is emotionally charged, and it really stressed me out, frankly, listening to it. It's an incredible story, and I think it's something that we all should be conscious of as we build our business. So I don't want to make you wait too long. Chris Michael Harris is a serial entrepreneur, business performance coach, keynote speaker, online expert. He's the founder and CEO of Startup U, and he hosts the popular podcast of the same name, Startup U. Like I said, I was on that recently. Go check that out. It's a great podcast, and this is a phenomenal entrepreneur, and there's so much I could say about this guy. I just really like him, if you can't tell from how I'm talking about him now. I really like him. I think he's a smart guy with a great message, and I think his heart is exactly in the right place, and he wants to help people, and he does. So without any further ado, guys, I give you Chris Michael Harris. All right, Chris, thank you for doing this, man, and welcome to Just Start Real Estate. I appreciate you being on.
Hey, man, I feel like we just talked yesterday. It was like a week or so ago. You're on my show, so
I know. I don't know how these will stagger in terms of when they go out, but I was just on your show recently. We were talking about that before we hopped on here live. Had a blast. Totally connect with you. I think you mentioned it. We're cut from the same entrepreneurial cloth. We see things the same in a lot of ways. So really enjoyed it, and I've been looking forward to having you on my show ever since. So thanks again.
I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is gonna be good. Now, full disclosure, you're not a real estate guy. It's not your thing, and that's cool because as we kind of touched on when we were talking before we jumped on here, real estate knowledge, nuts and bolts. How do I buy a house? How do I finance it? Like, where do I find deals? Like, all of that stuff I've talked about a million times. It's out there. You can find it in a million different locations. But what is sometimes underserved is the community and the issues that people have that is surrounding their inability to go out there and actually do something about their dreams, to take action on it? What holds them back? What's happening in their life? What has happened in their life that they're using as maybe outward excuses, or even subconsciously using as excuses? And I think that's the powerful conversation that isn't talked about enough, and it's not taken seriously enough. Because, I've said this a million times on my podcast, I can give people the metaphorical tools to build a house, and I can two different people. And one person will build a house, and the other person will blame the tools. They'll blame their health. They'll blame their gender. They'll blame their age. They'll blame their weight, their height, all this stuff, right? But it's the same tool. So why do some people succeed and others don't? Why do some people take action? Why do some people feel held back and others don't? That's really what I want to dive into. And I think you're the perfect guy to do that, because you talk about it a lot. You have a very interesting journey that we're going to get into deeply, of what exactly you've dealt with and how you've overcome that. And it's very universal, which is the beautiful part about it. It doesn't matter how you literally make your money. It's the universal message that you have is so powerful. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I am too. And to further that point you just mentioned, I want to clarify something, or rather to accentuate and highlight something you said. The nuts and bolts, and I'd have to go back and look and see exactly what study I read this from, but effectively what they found was that 80% of business, it's fundamentally the same. Yeah. It's the 20% is the nuance. It's the trade specific stuff. So the bottom line is the foundation of any business, regardless if it's real estate or if it's selling online products or building a tech enabled venture, whatever, the foundations are still there. The principles are still there. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I love it, man. So let's get into your story a little bit. Let's tell people who aren't familiar with you, where'd you come from, and some of the things you've gone through to get to where you are, and how did you do that? How did you take yourself out of some of the things that happened? So let's just dial back, maybe before anything really exciting happened to you, and let's move forward through that journey.
Yeah, so we can go way, way back. Basically, grew up kind of always seeing outside the 9 to 5. And a lot of people that are probably in real estate, they probably, that's one of the reasons why they're excited about real estate is, wow, I make one deal and I make more than what I would have made an entire annual salary. And that's really, really exciting. So I always kind of saw that opportunity, albeit, and maybe some people resonate with this. At that point in time, entrepreneurship wasn't as mainstream as it is now. I think the internet in a lot of ways made it so much more accessible for everybody to participate in this exciting thing of being self-employed.
Yeah, there was a time when entrepreneurship meant unemployed. You know what I mean?
Right,
I'm an entrepreneur.
Right. Or people were like, you're crazy. Like, what are you thinking? That's so risky, right? And in large degree, it still is, but mitigated substantially. So, so anyway, so I'm, fifth grade and all my friends are going to the pool and doing all the things that you do during the summer, right? Just hanging out, having fun. Meanwhile, I'm going up and down my cul-de-sac, just mowing everybody's lawns. And I made like $2,000 or $3,000. Got my first credit card. My dad, it was it was his card. My name was on it, what have you. And, putting my gas on it, just learning all the essentials, and made $2,000 or $3,000. And lo and behold, I was able to buy all of, I think at that time it was Nintendo 64 or whatever it was, or Xbox, whatever. Yeah. And I was able to just get whatever I wanted because I just cashed in. And so that was kind of a pervasive theme throughout my life. Going into high school, kind of continuing along that path, was going around, and actually I grew up in a town called Peachtree City in Georgia, where it's a planned community and there's golf cart paths that interweave throughout the community. 90, or it's like 110, I think it was 90 now, 110 miles of golf cart paths throughout the community. You can go to the grocery store, you can go to school. You can go anywhere you want in your golf cart.
No kidding.
So a buddy of mine and I driving around putting flyers and stuff in people's mailboxes, because that's how you marketed yourself back then. There was no Facebook ads or anything like that. Or you put your stuff on the Kroger bulletin board, maybe was your best bet to get in front of people. Yeah. So anyways, we hustled, thousands and thousands of them. And we got to the point where we're getting so much. This was like pressure washing driveways, detailing cars, trimming hedges, cleaning gutters, just your DIY stuff. And we found out throughout that process that one of the big requests, I think we made like $16,000. This was like my junior year going into my senior year of high school. We made like $16,000 over a summer. The biggest area of revenue that we were able to take in our biggest revenue generator was one specific request. And it was to move this elderly couple that had had a bad experience with a big box moving company. Okay. They moved from somewhere up north, I think Michigan, to Georgia, and just a lot of their stuff was damaged. They didn't feel really cared for. And so we ended up having to hire our friends and do this big job. We made like $8,000 off that one job. It took like 3 weeks.
Wow.
So anyways, so I go off to college and I'm still doing side hustles. There's some crazy stories in there. I went to New York on Black Friday, and a buddy of mine, a mentor of mine, was a couple years older than me, We stayed at the Carlisle five-star hotel in New York. Cost like thousands. It cost like $1,000 a night or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we went into Saks Fifth Avenue. He had a contact there. They pulled all his clothes aside, and everything on Black Friday, if you spent over a certain amount, it was like 25 to 50% off depending on the item, because they're trying to move stuff because it's the end of the season.
Yeah.
If you spent over $3,000, you got an additional 15 to 25% off. Plus, you could get no payments, no interest for 12 months. Right. So it's basically, if you can buy it and flip it on time eBay, you could double up on this stuff, because typically stuff on eBay will sell for 50% MSRP. Well, if you do the math, we're getting a 25 to 50% discount plus an extra 15 to 25.
Yeah.
For spending over $3,000. So some of that is we're getting 75% off, doubling up on eBay. We made $43,000 while I was in college.
Wow.
Just in 2 weeks span.
Wow.
So again, it's kind of like side hustles, not really taking it seriously as like a real opportunity as a career. It was just, wow, I made good money. I don't have to work the rest of my school year.
Yeah.
One of those ended up being a side hustle moving company, and I lived in a building that I always joke around and say was designed by a kindergartner with a crayon, because one of the hallways, like one of the wings of the building, went like an eighth of a mile away from the parking deck. And so getting your stuff, into that parking deck, and then furthermore to the front of the parking deck where your moving truck was, your U-Haul was almost impossible, right? So I happen to see these girls, and they're carrying this big, those big fold-out sofas, right? The one has the steel frame. Those are really heavy.
Yeah.
And they're wobbling and weaving and almost hitting the walls, and, it's just a disaster. And so I grabbed my brother, and he was with me at the time. I said, let's give him a hand, right? So the mom tipped us like $50. And I was like, I remember this. I did this in high school. We did a move, and it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
Maybe we got something here. So we put together a flyer, take up to the lease office manager. She's like, yeah, sure. Like, there's a lot of people that ask for moving requests. We'd love to support you guys, and so on and so forth. So we ended up moving like 30% of the building over the next 45 days and made thousands and thousands of dollars. It just so happened that my brother, a friend of his, had also went to University of Georgia, where we were at the time. His grandfather had a moving truck. So it was just serendipity in that sense. And he was like, hey, use a truck. It's just been sitting here for a long time. Just use it. Insurance is already paid for. You guys just put gas in and you're good. So we were just basically pure profit outside of the gas, right?
Wow.
So I graduate, I go on, and I get a quote unquote real job, because again, entrepreneurship as a career was not really a thing at this point, right?
Yeah.
So they keep doing it, and I'm funding them, and coming back on the weekends and stuff like that. I had a traveling sales job around the Southeast, and I think they did like $23,000 or $25,000, Mike, and like over the course of the summer at this point, in multiple buildings, not just that one apartment complex, but throughout Athens, Georgia, small college town. And I'm like, we got something here. Like, I didn't certainly go to college to start a moving company, but we've got something here. So anyway, like 6 months into my real job, and I'm kind of second guessing myself. And I remember there was a pivotal moment where my boss, I love the guy, he was fantastic, but this was like a defining moment that I'll never forget. Like, I remember what I was wearing. I remember we were sitting. I can put myself back in that moment. It was so vivid to me still, because it was such a defining moment. But he said, Chris, you're never going to be respected in this industry until your hair looks like mine. And his hair is white as snow, and it's just like, and he was like 2-3 years from retirement. I'm like, I'm not trying to wait until I'm, like that's, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want your life kind of situation.
How old were you at this point? Who was he talking to? How old were you at?
I was early 20s, man. I was maybe 22. I mean, I recently this was within a year of graduation from college. Okay. So I'm young, early 20s.
Early 20s guy being told his hair has to be white before he's going to be taken seriously. Wow.
So I just kind of lost all enthusiasm. Maybe that was his way of getting me to quit the job. But anyway, so I went to Vegas. I took my brother to Vegas for his graduation. And I don't know, it was like one of those, probably not the best time to make a life decision in Vegas in hindsight. But I just came back. Sometimes you go on a trip, you just have some moments of reflection.
Yeah.
You're outside of your normal cycle, and something just hits you, and just getting out of your environment and just changes your perspective. And I just said, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. This isn't for me. I just felt very out of alignment. So I come back and I said, I got this moving thing. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but we've made $20,000 over a summer as college kids, just kicking it around.
Yeah.
And so I come back, I take it on full time. And within the next, pretty much almost 18 months from there, within the next 18 to 36 months, we were a multimillionaire company doing business in 32 states, working with, I think 6 of the 7 major turnkey furniture manufacturers in the United States for basically fully furnished student housing units. So off campus, think off campus student apartments.
Yeah.
So we were doing residential stuff. We were doing installation work. I mean, it just was explosive growth. Wow. And I just really, by my mid-20s, I'm managing something that was well beyond anything that I was certainly capable of at that time. And so I just kind of eventually just fell into it and realized that entrepreneurship for me was a lifestyle, wasn't a career.
Nice. So when you did that, you said it was way too big for you. Did you, because that is explosive growth. And here's the overlap, right? This is where we talk about the 80% of the businesses are the same, the 20% of the nuance. So real estate investors struggle with this a little bit too, where they find their groove and they start growing, and the business grows faster than sometimes their ability to kind of stay on top of it. And their experiences haven't really prepared them for hiring and HR and all this stuff. Did you have to hire like a COO, or like how did you do that?
That's the problem. I'm so glad we bring this up because we talked about it on my show, and I definitely recommend people listen to what you had to say on my show. Shameless plug, but for very good reason, because we talked about the kind of the different paradigm, right? Looking at it paradoxically of like your situation where you're kind of took things a little bit slower and then had explosive growth versus me, like just explosive growth, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, man, that's awesome. Like you just pursued your dreams and it took off, and like, that's amazing. You just have to jump in the deep end of the pool. And I'm like, yeah, but I jumped into the deep end of the pool and didn't realize it was 6 inches deep. Right. It was the most painful experience. I always say this, I almost sold us to death in a lot of ways.
Wow.
We were so beyond our bandwidth. And the problem is that when you get beyond your bandwidth, the safety net is you. The safety net is your family, right? Like you have to be the glue and everything that continues to hold things together. And it's just so much more stress. Like that should have been the most enjoyable time of my life. Like God had come in and just provide this huge blessing. And I was so like, my dream became my nightmare so quickly because of growth. And people don't really like, that's crazy. Wow. And I promise you, if you've experienced 1,000% growth, we went from $48,000. So my first full year back, I left my job and came back. Within the next 8 months, I think we generated like $48,000. The problem is that wasn't enough in a low margin business to sustain my livelihood in addition to growing the business, right? Growth requires cash.
Yep.
So we exploded from that point forward, because in the next like 6 to 8 months after that, we hit $500,000, right? Here's the thing. I quickly learned what cash flow management felt like. I quickly learned what it's like to be in a rental car going from, one project, trying to quickly catch a red eye to get to another project that we had, trying to figure out how I'm going to come up with $60,000 and make payroll. I had guys all over the country. They had, mostly were college students, and they had parents that were calling me saying, hey, what's going on? My son is, trying to check into a hotel and they can't get in. They're sleeping in the car because the cards that you have are declining because we hadn't gotten paid by the people who were supposed to get paid, the manufacturers that had contracted us, because they're pushing their cash flow burden off onto us. Well, here's the deal. I don't have the resources, nor do I even have a line of credit, because the bank, we had grown so fast. The banks are like, look, 2 years of tax returns, no credit card, no line of credit. Despite the fact that we had, obviously proven revenues, and we had proven business and proven contracts. So you could factor it, which is a death sentence in a lot of ways, because now you're talking about crazy interest. Or eventually we got an ABL, asset-based lending agreement, which effectively turns into factoring if you don't satisfy that note within a certain period. So bottom line is I'm constantly trying to hit milestones, pushing my guys to deliver, because with project type work like that on construction sites, when you're doing installation work, you have to hit certain milestones for completion, like 25% completion, begets a payment, an installment, 50% begets an installment, and so on and so forth. Well, here's the deal. You might get to 40% completion, right? Units checked off and everything signed off on. And then all of a sudden there's a delay in construction, which, can you imagine? Anytime there's construction in your local town, if they say a year, you can already guess it's going to be about 3 years, right? It's always longer than you think.
Always.
We were the last link in the chain. So we're the last people to get paid, meaning anything that happened, it was going to affect us because we're the last. It's always going to affect us. Like furniture goes in last. So we have funded 40% of the project. We have guys on the ground there. Sometimes in situations, they're just sitting around waiting to get cleared to work more. And we've already funded in addition to not getting paid. And now multiply that across multiple projects. It was not uncommon for me to be owed $400,000 to $500,000. That was not uncommon. And then trying to scramble and come up with tens of thousands, if not $60,000 in payroll. So the problem is that you spend most of your time at this point, and this applies to anything. Like this applies to whatever. Like this is something you'll experience in any business if you grow too fast. What you'll end up experiencing is that you spend 95% of your time plugging holes or managing cash flow or doing things just survival mode, not actually building a sustainable business, not actually doing the things that are going to get you out. You're cleaning up a mess to get yourself in another mess. Like you're like, well, I have to shoot myself in this foot. because right now it's the only option that I have. Like there is no such thing as building forward. There's no such thing as future planning. There's no such thing as interviewing COOs, because you're literally just trying to get through the hour, let alone the day.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it is a horrifying experience that I wouldn't wish on anybody.
100%. You're totally right. People get themselves into a point where, and this is kind of what I think sometimes people talk about. They leave a job, this thing that they think they don't like, this 9-to-5 job, to start a business where they're working twice as much and they're just like always in survival mode. You said something really powerful right in the beginning of what you were just now saying, is that your dream became your nightmare because of growth. It's so counterintuitive to someone who hasn't gone through it, because you go, growth solves all your problems. It really more money.
Doesn't. That's what I thought. I said, let's sell our way out of it.
Yeah.
Well, it is. All you need is make more money and you'll be fine. Because I'm a sales guy. That was, I grew up in a sales environment. So once we get to a certain point, we can hire the resources we need. Yeah. Here's the problem. And this is the crazy thing people aren't going to believe. My margins kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then by the time we hit 1.2, I didn't even know if we were actually making money on like half of the assignments we did. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There was no control. There were no controllers in place. There was nobody looking over our books. It was just because so I had to learn what systems and processes look like. I had to learn what building a team looked like, building culture looked like. We'd have guys, we get reports where, we had to hire guys literally off the side of the road in some cases. I mean, that's not even an exaggeration, because we were growing, picking up assignments where I've got a $140,000 contract that we picked up and in Los Angeles. I've never hired anybody in Los Angeles, never done anything in Los Angeles. Yeah. And we had to be there 2 days after Christmas to fill this. It was a salvage job. The installers before us did a horrible job, and we would always get called because we did a good job. Yeah. And I prided myself on that. We took a very white collar approach to blue collar industry. And that's why we excelled to the degree that we did. But now you're talking about having to hire entire crews around the clock, and you got 4 days to do it. How good do you think and reliable and trustworthy you think these individuals are going to be? Yeah. Or how much time do you really think you have to vet these people? So we get calls from the property like, hey, we found a couple of your guys smoking pot in the stairwell. Or there was a guy that installed a bed in one of the units and he literally went to sleep in it. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I got stories for days of just crazy stuff that happened and calls that I would get that people, like, I should write a book on literally those 3 years of my life, because it was so out of control.
I believe
and you quickly realize how much more sales is one, but of many levers of growing your business. And we so often equate, and I'm not trying to tell people don't sell, like sit around and because if you don't sell, you have a hobby, not a business. Like it's so important. It is one of the levers. It's just, I think when we have not built a business before, we view it as the only lever, or we overemphasize the significance of that lever.
Well, here's the part that makes it interesting. When someone thinks about selling their way out of a problem, every inefficiency, everything you do that is not helping you in your bit, like every little mistake you make is amplified the more money you make. So if you're running a business that's small and you're inefficient, it won't seem so bad, but you multiply that by 10, and that little inefficiency is now tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars that you're wasting over time. And so when you try to sell your way out of a poorly run business, you end up with a lot of financial issues that you didn't have when you were smaller.
Yeah, finally a mentor, I totally agree with you just said. A mentor of mine finally said to me, he said, revenue is for vanity, profitability is for sanity.
Yep.
And I was like, he's right, because even at $500,000 at the end of the year, my net was better than when I made $1.2 million.
Yep.
Like we were no further to our goals other than just vanity to say we made $1 million.
Yep.
And I think we get way too infatuated, which is why I commended you when we talked about your story. And I was like, I think those years you spent, those 4 years you spent where you were like really just learning the business, albeit not exploding in the revenue growth you wanted, really prepared you for the revenue growth you experienced, because it gave you time to really understand what this required and what growth could potentially look like, but just to really get your hands dirty and know what to do to be able to manage that kind of growth.
Yeah, totally. Because we are cut from the same cloth. I would have went like all out. Like I just would have went crazy buying houses and doing, I wouldn't have cared. I just wanted I wanted the revenue. I wanted the growth.
Right.
And so like just, if people, if they haven't heard the show or they haven't heard it yet, it was basically my wife that was like, hey, let's just slow this train down a little bit. She could recognize I was like a horse just chomping at the bit, waiting to get out on that track. And she sort of kept me from doing that, which is, like you said, probably one of the best things that happened. So let's okay. What happened to that business, or what has happened to that business so far?
Yeah. So that's where the story kind of takes a little bit further of a downturn here. So as you can imagine, that was taking a significant toll on me. right? Doing what I was doing, red eyes, not eating, not sleeping, all these various things. And in your 20s, you're invincible. Do whatever you want, right? Like those things don't affect you. Sleeping 3 hours a night is not a big deal. So we had noticed though, throughout this process, that there were some health issues starting to manifest, right? It was like some things were starting to happen that, my girlfriend, whom is now my wife, started to call to my attention, like, this is not going to end well. She was like, I used to expect phone calls about you having nervous breakdowns or, some kind of a crisis of some sort, because it's impossible to keep burning at both ends the way you are for as long as you've been doing it. Yeah. So anyway, 2016 rolls around and Georgia Department of Public Safety shows up at our office. No idea why. I was in Puerto Rico. We had been visiting my in-laws for Christmas, and we were there in early January. And he said, hey, the sheriff just showed up and he gave us a cease and desist order. Basically, the Georgia state regulatory whatever office decided that they were no longer allowed moving companies to use rental trucks to do what they did. Well, that's a huge chunk of my business. One of the reasons we had been able to grow and scale like we did is because we leverage other people's assets, which is a smart thing to do to scale any business, because we don't have to have an entire fleet of trucks we've invested in insurance and so on and so forth. Just use the ones that already exist out there and pay them for the insurance. So anyways, so we're having to outsource jobs until we can get this. Basically, we had to go and get our own fleet of trucks, which first required us to get out of, again, to the point of growing too fast. We were in the involuntary work comp market, meaning you are an assigned risk pool. So you're new. It's the same thing for people that don't know. It's the same thing when you get your driver's license when you're 16. Your rate's higher because you haven't proven yourself as a driver. So there's what's called an involuntary market for insurance, and it basically means you are in a high risk pool until you get a standard policy in a more as being a more established company, which means your rate is outrageous. I was paying 30% per every $100 in payroll. I mean, that's outrageous. Like my payroll was significantly more than my work comp premium was significantly more than I ever paid myself in that business. It would not be uncommon for me to pay $75,000, $85,000, $90,000 just in work comp alone. Wow. So I got to get a standard market, right, policy in order to get a policy for the truck, because the truck wouldn't give me a policy. They wouldn't underwrite a policy for the trucks until I was in a standard market. And then on top, the work Berkshire Hathaway gave me $120,000 premium because they're like, hey, this is a big risk, but we'll do it for $120,000. And so I got $120K just to get a standard market policy. Wow. $30,000 to insure one truck, plus then the cost of the truck. So $200,000 later, I've got a single truck and I'm in a standard market. Oh, right? My gosh. On top of so this is the hurdle that the government has thrown at me as far as, getting out of that cease and desist. Yeah. So big mess. This is like, again, January-ish. So we're going through that process, and they said, it'll take 2 months and you'll go through. So anyway,
how many trucks did you need, by the way? How many trucks did you need, just for context? How many were you eventually
So I needed one just to have the USDOT and the state issued number on the side of the truck. Okay. And then I could use other rental trucks. They just want you to have the number. I got you. Right. So that was the thing. They didn't want you to have solely leveraging rental vehicles, which again, I don't know why, but that was just what they were requiring. Okay. So anyways, by May, and I'm sourcing out jobs. So we're literally sourcing out jobs of businesses that are doing exactly what we were doing. Other moving companies that have they use rental trucks in the same capacity. I was going to go to jail if I continued to do. Literally, I was going to go to jail if I continued to defy that cease and desist. Yeah. So by May, finally, my health had gotten I deteriorated so bad. I the month of May, not to be gross or TMI here, I had I think 2 movements the entire month, and movement meaning bowel movement for those that aren't. Yeah. So I just was not functioning. Like body was shutting down. Yeah, right. So I go and get, there was an integrative medicine practitioner or practice that was around the corner from where we lived. And my wife, she went to university in Atlanta and she heard great things about. So I went there, and they did $2,000 worth of labs. And they're like, hey, bud, like literally in 35 years of practice, your gut is worse than anybody we've seen for your age. Not overall, but for your age. Right. When you're being in your 20s is the worst we've ever seen for your age. If you keep going at this pace, I mean, if you look down all my labs, like anytime there's a red marker, or like the text is red, means you're not in the normal range. I mean, it was Christmas tree status. I mean, it was just red all over the place. Yeah. Yeah. Thyroid wasn't working. My urinalysis and my saliva analysis were 00. So my thyroid just wasn't functioning. My endocrine system was a disaster. I mean, every mineral or vitamin deficiency you can imagine I had.
Wow.
So they're like, at this pace, if you keep doing what you're doing, running this business the way you are, living your life the way you're leading it, having the lifestyle habits you have, you'll be gone by 40, 50 at best. That's where you're trending.
Wow.
So that's pretty terrifying to get that note. So I go crazy and I'm like, well, we need capital, right? Because then I can invest, I can get the truck and get us compliant. I can get back on the road and doing projects and taking on installation jobs and stuff like that and hiring the help that I need and all these various things that I hadn't done that we really needed to get over this hurdle of being in no man's land between, $750,000 and $5 million, especially in that business with low margins.
Yep.
So I pitched 725 investors in 3 months. 725 investors.
How'd you find 725 investors? Where in the world did you find these people?
So there's various platforms where you can identify, investors that consider deals and stuff like that. You can just go onto LinkedIn and put angel investor or early stage investor, things of that nature, right? Yep. So you're just putting together a list and you're just blasting as many as you bought. You create a deck and I did it the wrong way. That's not what you should do. You should build a relationship with the people you're looking to invest in. You not just blast them out of nowhere.
Right.
But at this point you're in desperation mode.
Sure.
So
yeah.
Crazy enough, man. I actually got several commitment letters of people that were like, I'm really interested in this. I can't believe you've gotten the growth you've gotten with, the resources that you've had.
Yeah.
Let's sit down and do some due diligence. That just takes a long time. They want to really get to know you, come check you out, come to your office, look at the book, do due diligence. I mean, do their process. They're going to just write you a check. This isn't the Bay. So anyways, it's a long process. And now the clock's ticking here because cease and desist, having those low margins that I had, in addition to the low margins that business already provided, I'm in a bad spot. I had taken a bridge loan after I got some commitment letters from an acquaintance of mine, $100,000 just to kind of get us through till we finished due diligence.
Yep.
August 26th, I get a phone call. I'm 4 days from sitting down to really, finalize due diligence with one of those folks, one of those individual investors. And he knew the industry, understood what we were trying to do, really, really loved the prospect of what we were doing. I really was confident about that one. This was a Friday and I was supposed to meet with him on Tuesday, right? Okay. Get a call from my right-hand man at this point. He says, hey, I don't know if you're sitting, but you want to sit. So as it turns out, there was, our guys were coming back on the Florida Turnpike and basically were run off the road. And they had a collision with a truck on the side of the road coming up the turnpike, drove them both off the road. They were currently, when he called me, they were using the jaws of life to get the other people out of their vehicle. And they were landing a helicopter on the highway to life-flight them. Wow. That was the call I got. So I hop in the car and I'm flying down the highway. I'm free. I mean, at this point I'm shaking. Like at this point I'm having panic attacks almost every day, Mike. I mean, because I'm free. Like the time is of the essence. Time's running out. I've taken this bridge loan. I'm obviously not gonna be able to pay it back because I'm just bleeding out. I mean, literally faster. Like didn't even feasibly make sense how fast I was bleeding out. Right. And pitching these deals and being like, I have to sell this deal or it's over. Right. And my health on top of that is a disaster. Right.
Yep.
And so anyways, I call my attorney and given the cease and desist, because we got to a point where we just defied the cease and desist because I had no choice. And now I get in an accident, the first accident we had ever had in the history of that business.
God.
And so here I am thinking, Mike, I'm going to jail. Like if these people die, if my guys die because my work comp had just expired because I couldn't afford to renew it, I'm going to jail, like for real.
Right.
So I'm freaking out. We get down there and I swear to God, I'll send you the pictures, Mike, personally, when we're off this, because if you look at that vehicle, there's no way. If you don't believe in something, bigger than you, you'll believe it after you see these pictures. These people should have all died.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we had paid budget rental truck for their biggest insurance policy. Thank the good Lord, because that paid out $1 million settlement. And the people that were in that vehicle, basically their truck wedged underneath our moving truck and it smashed their car down over their faces. Their heads went through the windows and their faces were like scraped against the side of our moving truck. I mean,
wow,
hellacious injuries, right? Thank God our guys went unscathed, relatively unscathed.
Whose fault was it, by the way? Were you guys at fault?
It was mutual. So what happened was they were speeding to get around our guys. And then our guys, so in Florida, if you guys have been to Florida, they have those kind of like gas stations in the middle and in the median, right?
Okay.
So instead of pulling off to the side of the road, you can just pull into that middle gas station in on the turnpike, right?
Yep.
So my guys are almost out of gas, so they turn it in, use their turn signal, and the other people are speeding at the same time. So it was kind of like joint responsibility kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But anyways, yeah, not a good situation. So I call my attorney and he's like, the business is done. Like he knew we were continuing to operate. I had run it by my advisors and my attorney and been like, I don't have a choice. And they all kind of gave the thumbs up, but like, it's on you, man. Like you want to take the risk, go for it. But they understood why I was doing it. I didn't want to lose that business, especially we were so close to getting over the hurdle as I saw it. So anyways, business was over at that point. So now I'm sick. I'm bedridden. The business is closed. I've got the entire mess that's dealing with that. I've got lawsuits. I'm possibly going to get in legal trouble, like criminal legal trouble, because I was operating without the things that I needed. And then the bridge loan that I took, they're coming after me too. So I had several lawsuits, business, health, everything. I mean, I'm a disaster. And in addition to now, we had depleted all of our personal reserves trying to, keep our runway with that business. And I'm bedridden and suicidal. And I mean, I'm in a bad, dark place.
Yeah.
So we had to buy out of our lease. We had to borrow money to buy out of our lease. We moved far away from the city so we could afford a place to live and kind of licked our wounds, going forward. But yeah, it was a hellacious 2016. People talked about 2020, how challenging of a year it was. Let's just say 2020 for me, after going through 2016, was a walk in the park.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's a lot. And that's incredibly powerful. My gosh, I don't think I've ever heard a story that bothered me and got me so emotionally wrapped up as what you just told me. That's horrible. And so where did your health go from there? Let's focus on that for a minute. You're in horrible health, and then once you're in horrible health, horrible things continue to happen, which could not have helped your health. Like what? Yeah. Okay, let's start a new chapter. That business is gone, and now you're licking your wounds, and so. What did you focus on next? What did your life look like at that point going forward?
Yeah. So I want to make sure I say this because it's very important to people. Like if, I think that we always hear the story at a high level. We never hear like the true depths of where people are. Yeah. Everybody loves a good redemption story, but I think it's important. Some people don't give themselves permission to just really feel like hell. Right. Yeah. Better part of 2017, I didn't really get out of bed. If I'm being totally candid, I really didn't have much of a desire. I had not only did I have the health crisis, but I had an existential crisis of like, I had built up my reputation as Chris, the successful entrepreneur for so long, that without that, I didn't really know who I was anymore. Like if I'm not this, then who am I? Right. Yep. And so that was really, really difficult. And feeling like a failure and like having to tell everybody, I didn't tell people what happened. I was like, oh yeah, we sold the business. Like I didn't have the heart to like go through it and tell this story every single time of what happened, So I slowly started I had a choice because my father's a Crohn's sufferer. And so this was looking very hereditary, the gut issues that manifested into basically a chain reaction of everything else kind of shutting down on my body. Yep. But I saw the suffering that he went through for years. I've never known him in my life to not have this disease, to be suffering from this disease. I've seen the ups and the downs. I've seen the side effects. I've seen everything that the pharmaceutical route looks like to treat Crohn's. Yep. And I'm 29 years old. I have no interest in living a life like that for the rest of my life. Right. Yeah. So I decided, I'm going to learn whatever I need to learn, do what I can to hopefully treat this naturally. And then if I have to, then I'll take the prednisones and the Humiras or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just started immersing myself in my education of health and wellness and just making that my sole number one focus and job. My health had gotten so bad at that point that literally, Mike, like taking my trash out or making a trip to the grocery store was like the big win of the day.
Wow.
Because you're just so depleted in so many ways, like your body, there's just no reserves left. And there's a plethora of reasons I can explain as to why that happens. Mitochondrial health. There's a variety of different issues as far as what was going on. Yeah. You're not producing neurotransmitters because your gut is a mess. You've got severe depression and all those various things. But anyways, I just immersed myself. So I just fell in love with learning from guys like Dr. Josh Axe or Jordan Rubin or Dr. Eric Berg or Dr. Mark Hyman or whomever that's online just talking about functional integrative medicine. Yeah. And just read the books and read the success stories. And I saw that Jordan Rubin had, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and visited all these countries and he died. He literally died. He had Crohn's. We got to college and all of a sudden had Crohn's. He got down to 95 pounds and he was in Russia seeing some specialists. Literally his family took him to Russia and he died on the table right there and they were able to revive him, this and that. And he's telling his story and I'm like, my God, this for one, this could have been worse. But for 2, I see him now and he's made it. And that gave me so much hope. Right. So I think a lot of people in those moments, they don't look for success stories to inspire them, to motivate them. They just kind of sulk it's easy to have your focus inward when you feel so shitty, you know? So I just focused on all the inspiration I could externally. And so what spawned out of that was my podcast, because I was like, okay, what can I do right now? Like, I can't work. My superpower, as I saw it in entrepreneurship, was work hard. I was willing to outwork anybody. I'd outwork anybody in the gym. I'd outwork anybody, in business, and, putting the 18 hours. I prided myself on that. Masochistically prided myself on that. Right now, I don't have that, because doctors are telling me, if you keep working like this, you're not going to get better. Right. So they're like, I don't want any stress in your life. Okay. Well, that's easier said than done when you've got hundreds of $1,000s of lawsuits. You got a health crisis.
Just hearing that you can't have stress stresses you out.
Exactly. Plus my wife. So thank God, she had already started her business. Well, she had been running her business as a social media manager. She had now been transitioning into course creator, so selling online information products and having a membership. So honest to God, she is in so many ways like a guardian angel of my life. She's just incredible. She inspires me in so many ways. But she just took over and just ran and launched her business. It just exploded. Wow. Within a very short period of time. She's doing $20,000-$30,000 a month with information products, and was able to give me everything that I needed, the specialists, the diet, the alternatives, visiting the various, whatever I needed, we were investing in. Meanwhile, what I'm doing is just investing in my health, making it my full-time job, and doing this podcast. Because what I knew was that what I did was not the route to success. I had done some things right, but I'd done a lot of things wrong. There were so many things along my journey that I wish I had known prior to it, having it kick me in the ass, And so I wanted to learn from people, what have you done? And some of the most beautiful conversations came out of that. And the show, fortunately, within the first couple of weeks of starting it, was trending. This is where it's such a divide God moment, but was trending top 5 in the world on iTunes on business, health, and education. And I'm like, wow. So out of the ashes comes this thing that I don't know what it's going to be, but right now it's giving me a lot of excitement. It's something that I can focus on that's positive in my life, outside of the fact that my wife is a beast and she's crushing it. So I'm having conversations pretty soon, and we reached out, we're like, why not? So I had connected with some of the people at Shark Group, Damon John's, the kind of the brand behind Damon John. And I'm like, hey, I'd love to have Damon. My show's trending. They're like, yeah, that's great. He's promoting a book right now. I'm like, are you kidding me? Damon John's coming on my pod. So we leveraged that. And, we got all these other people, the Grant Cardones and the Guy Kawasaki's and Jack Canfield and all these New York Times bestselling authors and all these amazing billionaires and, thought leaders and authors and, just titans of industry are now, I'm getting their undivided individual attention, but more importantly, their advice, because all the questions I'm asking, sure, I'm asking for my audience. You better believe I'm asking because I want to know, right, what it is that you do that makes you great. And one of the most beautiful things that came out of that, in addition to the X's and O's, the X's and O's are really important. And I learned, I feel like the last 4 years of me recovering have been like, that business was my MBA. This feels like my PhD, right? That's what it feels like. My first business was 4 years and, MBA. And then this is the next 4 years, my PhD. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm choosing to view it that way.
Yeah. Well, you're right. So, like you said, I'm totally with you, man. I get it. I ask questions on my show a lot of times for my audience, but I'm selfishly asking things I want to know. There's a reason why I don't have a set of questions that I just cram down everyone's throat. I want it to go where it's interesting for me and that I can really learn, because I think everyone's going to learn when I learn. So
exactly. But one of the common denominators that I found, and it just gave me so much peace about my situation, feeling like such a failure and feeling like, that I was inherently flawed in all these ways and that my health was never going to permit me to go do and achieve my dreams and my goals and stuff like that. And every single one of them I'm almost predictably had been through hell. Had a Damon John hustling t-shirts out of the back of his car at Yankee Stadium, had to shut down 3 or 4 different times. Mom's leveraging the mortgage so that he can hustle out the garage of her home. I mean, guys sleeping in their offices, sneaking into the gym to shower, right? And I mean, it's just time and again, business partners had, taken all the money and disappeared and they got screwed out of their business. I mean, it was just story after story after story. And I'm listening to their struggles. And I'm like, there's just something to be said about the path of success, the path of greatness that just, when you stretch yourself, eventually, sometimes you're going to fall on your face, and that's part of the process, right? So what I have to do is I just have to be able to learn how to get up more times than I've fallen down. And it just normalized that up and down process so much. but also then how can I equip myself with the knowledge that I need so that I don't make careless mistakes, silly mistakes that costed me so much. It doesn't mean you're going to be bulletproof and you're never going to experience this again. And for all intents and purposes, I might. Like, I have no idea. I might experience it again, but I'm prepared for it this time. Like, I know what that path looks like. It also takes the fear away in so many ways, right? Because you've seen them and they've been through it. Okay, great. And now you've been through it too. And now you're pulling out of it. It's like, what's the worst that could happen? I don't think much worse that could happen in my life other than literally losing my life. That is worse than what I experienced, at least as an entrepreneur. So now I in a lot of ways, I'm willing to take these bold steps. I'm willing to do these things because I'm operating with a degree. It's like the mortality experience that Brendan Burchard talks about, where he literally almost died in a car accident in Jamaica when he was younger in his teens. And it gives him, he looks at it as a gift because it gives him so much courage. Because he's like, what could get worse than me almost dying and losing my life? Like, it just gives you perspective that you wouldn't have otherwise. So throughout that process, that was like the beacon, my wife, and that was like the beacon of hope that I had to move out of it. And then I've just kind of continued to thrive and rebuild myself as a result. And fortunately today, if you look at my labs, I just had them done. I do them every year at the beginning of the year, just to analyze where I'm at. If you look at those labs, Mike, and you look at what I was at 4 years ago, right, when I was diagnosed, you looking at them side by side, if I crossed out, I redacted the name, you'd be like, these are two different people. Like, my testosterone was like high 2s, low 3s, 850 now. I mean, that's a naturally, not TRT, naturally. And in every way, that's the case. Did it completely naturally with this dedication, changing my lifestyle, rebuilding myself, investing in my health, investing in my future. I mean, all those things you people talk about, climbing that mountain, climbing that Everest every single day through the ups and downs. And it was hard. And I almost gave up a million times and said, give me the drugs. I'm just going to fly. I'm just going to flame out at 50 and just go down a blaze of glory. Right. Like, I wish I could tell you I was committed every time. I wish I could tell you I was committed to entrepreneurship every single day.
Dude, if you told me you were committed every single day, I'd think you were lying.
BS.
Right? It's total lie. Nobody's committed every single day. I don't care who you look at. They have days where they have doubts and bad days. So I would be doing a disservice. And I know that your situation's, it's not unique, but it's specific a little bit and everyone doesn't go through the exact same health issues you had, but just at a high level, right? At a kind of more of a macro level, what kinds of things do you do health-wise in terms of like exercise and eating? Are there any like staples and things that you go, I don't care what's wrong with you. Like, these are things I've learned that are important.
Yes. All right. So I'm so glad you asked that, because there are some staples that, you don't have to get into the nuance of what I have to do and what I do. I'm a total nerd biohacker. I follow the guys like Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield. Like, they're doing some kind of, wearable device or injecting themselves with something or doing crazy stuff in some country all the time. That's the kind of stuff I do now. There's a couple staples though that you have to nail. The first one is sleep, right? Like, you have to hack your sleep. You have to make, like, there's so many of us that we're waking up in the morning exhausted. We're yawning in the afternoon. Those things aren't normal. We're watching TV until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. You've got to nail your sleep. You've got to 2 hours before you go to bed. You have got to have either blue light blocking glasses, which is what I'm wearing right now, or you've got to turn all the lights off, period. You've got to hit your numbers. You've got to get 10 to 15 hours of deep sleep. You got to get 20 to 25 hours of REM every single night. That alone will remedy most of your problems.
Wait,
one of the biggest issues
you said
that I had
20 to 25 hours of REM. What kind of sleep do you need? Say that again. I misheard
10
you.
to 15 and 10 to 15% of deep of your total sleep time needs to be in deep sleep.
I gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So some people sleep 9 hours, but like, I sleep 9 hours a night. And it's like, well, yeah, but that doesn't matter. Let's say you're watching TV till late at night, right? And so basically what happens is that you're unable to convert serotonin into melatonin, which allows you to more seamlessly go into deep sleep. So you may go to bed at 11 or 12 and then sleep till 8 or 9 and say, well, I got my 8 hours. What's the problem? I'm still exhausted. So, well, here's the deal. Your sleep efficiency was terrible because you were preventing your body from naturally producing melatonin going into deep sleep that you need. Deep sleep cleanses the body. It literally flushes the body. REM flushes the brain, right? So you will literally start developing toxins in both your body and your brain if you don't hit those numbers. It's critical. You go long periods of time, you're going to create a cataclysmic effect, negative effect on your body. So sleep is everything. You've got to nail sleep. And I love it. And some people are like, I don't have time to sleep. Okay. You can get 7 hours and still hit the 10 to 15% and 20 to 25% of REM and be good. Like it's not it's not the volume, it's the quantity, right? So, or the quality rather.
So blue blockers, turning off lights, whatever it takes, 2 hours before you go to bed.
That's the first. Okay. Yeah, that's the first thing. Okay. The second thing is going to be relatively obvious for a lot of people, but it's nailing the diet, right? So to start, let's get rid of the nonsense. Let's get rid of the Cokes. Let's get rid of the sodas. Let's get rid of the fast food, or at least limit it. Maybe give yourself a couple cheat meals a month or what have you, but you want to get as many raw, grass-fed, antibiotic-free, hormone-free, cage-free, whatever you can buy. And I promise you there's places you can find those at a discount. Specifically now when the world is changing and evolving, and there's so many places like Aldi that have phenomenal options at a discount where you don't have to go to Whole Check, aka Whole Foods, and pay $600. Like those options exist. Yeah. So you really want to nail that. The last part, so this is the trifecta. You nail these three, I promise a lot of your issues are going to go away. And I get more into the diet specific if you'd like. But the last part is stress. So cortisol is one of the biggest issues that you're going to have if you're running a business, right? Because what ends up happening is your body is going to eventually run it. You can only produce a certain amount of cortisol a day. When you're burning that out all the time, and then you're throwing caffeine on top of that, what ends up happening is you stop producing enough. Cortisol is a natural anti-inflammatory. And when you run out of that stuff, you start having inflammatory effects in the body where it starts causing those chain reaction of issues that you're having. Your hormones get out of whack, and it just is a downhill slippery slope from there. So stress is one of the worst things. I would say this, and there's a million studies I can provide to validate this. You could live a life not doing a lot of the healthy things that you should be doing. If you don't have stress, I can promise you the person that has stress but does all the things, like let's say I still had stress and I'm doing all these health things, we would probably balance each other out purely based on the stress alone. Okay. Right. So one of the things that I do, and I highly recommend this device to anybody, right, is the Garmin Vivo Smart 4. This thing is going to save an entrepreneur. This is your best friend. A type A driven person, this thing is your best. I live and die by this thing. Now, a lot of it is still instinctual. Like I'm still relying on my gut feeling and this and that, but I like data. I like numbers. I live my life in numbers. I live my business in numbers. Numbers, you're going to make love to the numbers in all areas of your life because the numbers are going to help you in business to know where your opportunities are. They're going to help you all. Your numbers, and what I mean by that is this thing has what's called a body battery, right? So that body battery is an amalgamation, a formula of various components that includes HRV. HRV stands for heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is the closest metric that we have to measuring stress. Okay. Now, stress could be a variety of different things. We think stress like, oh God, I'm not going to make my bills. That's one form of stress, but there's eustress and there's stress. So going to the gym puts stress in your body. Thinking about something intensely is stressful. Anything you do is putting some form of stress on the body. Think stress is like just exerting energy in some way, right? What this thing does is it will tell you here, out of a scale of 1 to 100, here's where you are today. So I know, Mike, if my body battery, I wake up as a 41, then I know that's a day that I can't push very hard, right? If my body battery is 100, I know this is a day I can really push, right? Or I can really push myself at the gym and I can do all these things. The problem is that we're getting to maybe a 30 or 40 body battery every day, not knowingly. And then on top of that, we're just say, well, this is going to be a big caffeine day, producing more cortisol, which is going to further affect the gut and all of those functions, creating more of an inflammatory response. And then you start creating that chain reaction that I created. So this is my governor. This gives me permission. This is my personal trainer that I take with me everywhere.
Tell me the name of it. Tell me the name of it again real quick. I'm sorry. It was Garmin?
Garmin, like the GPS. Yep. Right. They make something. It's called the Vivo. It's spelled VIVO Smart. So it's a little hyphen over the I. So it's technically Vivo Smart, but it's spelled Vivo Smart.
Got it.
And this is Vivo Smart 4. You can get it on Amazon for $100.
Okay.
Cool. The best $100 you ever spent.
Yeah, I want to put that in the show notes. Good. Thank you.
Please. So that also will give you what I talked about before, right? And I want to get into some other aspects of what it'll provide. I feel like, they should 100% sponsor me here. It will also give you those sleep numbers that I mentioned, right? So you wake up in the morning and guess what you do? You look at the app, you refresh, it'll tell you, here's how much deep sleep you got. Here's how much light sleep. Here's how many awakenings. Here was your stress in the night. So here's the deal. If you went to bed and you watch a certain program, you can see your stress on that scale is really high when you first went to sleep. It also could be something you ate. So if you ate a high carb diet or a high carb meal before you went to bed, you might see that you're having a big insulin spike and it was causing stress in your body and that's affecting your sleep numbers. So you'll be able to craft something that works for you. And then more importantly, throughout the day, this thing will nudge you when you're too stressed. It will nudge you when it's time to get up and move around because we're creatures that need to move. We need to breathe. We need to move. We need to, get up and get things flowing, right? And we sit too long, right? And that's really bad for our brain and our body to be just in this position of sitting for more than an hour at a time. This thing will nudge me and remind me, hey, you've been sitting for a while. You need to clear that. You need to go move. So for me, this thing is huge, primarily obviously for the stress, but it also helps me manage the lifestyle habits that I like in addition to the diet, and the sleep. So you nail those three, I promise you're going to be in a lot better shape, and you're going to protect yourself going forward so that you can push as hard as you want in your business, or at least continue to push and not flame out like I did.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. I think I have a sense of what you're going to say, but you conspicuously did not mention exercise. And I don't think that's because you don't believe in exercise. But what I think is interesting is people sometimes think, and I've been guilty of this too, like there's really no point in dieting and getting sleep because I don't exercise, so what's the difference? You just named the trifecta, and not one of the three was not diet, or I'm sorry, not exercise. Not exercise. Yeah. So talk to me about that. How does exercise play in?
I'm glad you bring that up, because I look at that as now, I'm not saying that exercise isn't important. It's absolutely important, but you got to nail those three first, right? Yes. Here's the deal. This is ridiculous, but this is what they found. There are some moms that are stay-at-home moms that are in better health condition and better shape than guys that go to the gym every single day. It really doesn't take as much as you think. Like you could literally go for leisurely walks. As long as you get 7,500 steps a day, you're in great shape. So we tend to romanticize the gym. Like so many of us, for example, Mike, we're killing ourselves at the gym. We're not losing weight. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, because you have a bloating and inflammation problem, you have a gut problem, you don't have necessarily excess body fat, right? Yeah. You might have other issues going on. So we tend to romanticize the gym and what it requires to actually be in good condition. Now, not abs, I'm going to the beach condition, but good foundational, solid human health, right? Requires you to just move. So I did mention moving with this device, and that is important. Yep. But yeah, you could literally do 7,500 steps a day, 8,500 steps a day, somewhere in that range, and be just as, if not significantly more healthy than someone that's not doing those other three things that I mentioned, but is going to the gym every single day.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So let's talk. We've talked about your business that almost killed you. We talked about all the horrible things that was stressful. If I would have had one of those things on, I think it would have been going off because I was getting stressed out listening to that whole journey.
Sorry.
No, man, it's good. I guess I guess you'll the bill if I have to go to the hospital. But
all right.
And we talked about your health journey. We talked about what your wife did to kind of jump in and be that person who was your kind of your savior at that time, which is totally cool. I love that part of the story, frankly. What do you do now? What does your life look like from a business standpoint? I understand health where you're at, but where are you at business-wise now? What do you do because you said you can't stress out. So I think a lot of people listening going, how in the heck do you have a successful business without tons of stress? Like, what do you do and how do you keep that stress down?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the podcast kind of spawned into me launching an online business because I said, okay, well, what can I do? I can't do the heavy lifting. I can't do the pushing. I can't do the sprinting that I did before. Yep. So what can I do? So wisdom work, right? So I started finding clients that were experiencing growth the way that I was. Because, wow, here's a guy that had accelerated growth, grew 1,000% from year 1 to year 2, and then doubled it by year 3. And so people that were raising money, looking at scale, trying to navigate growth, build their systems and processes was right up my alley. So I started really using the online space to start filling up that bucket to get clients. I also really invested in myself, and I'm a Silicon Valley, am involved with the Silicon Valley Accelerator program for the chapter here in Austin. I'm the entrepreneur in residence for that. So again, mentoring. I'm a mentor for a lot of different co-working spaces. So using wisdom work was a saving grace for me. And working with high growth clients allowed me to charge a rate that was suitable for me to continue to push something forward for myself. And this is something I really teach to people, and I think is important. And we'll touch on this, but again, I want people to kind of really meditate with this because I think it's important. But use that as an iterative step of the process to eventually start selling my own online digital products, right? I think too many of us, because it's so easy to do so now, we go from idea to final iteration, idea to scale, right? Yeah. And there's just so much to be said about rolling up your sleeves, being face-to-face with somebody, being face-to-face with your market, learning what the basic MVP looks like, really falling in love with that business, total immersion, so that you can replicate that at scale, right? So that was me kind of learning. And it's funny because a lot of people were like, well, you've already done it once, you'll do it quickly again. It's like, yeah, but in any business, you can accelerate the steps, but you can't skip the steps.
Yeah.
Like you got to go back to square one. And so that's what I've been doing. I went back to square one, not as fast as I would have liked, obviously, because I'm a crazy entrepreneur, but going back to square one, starting with the podcast, getting clients, doing the mentorship, stuff like that. And then recently, within the past couple of months, we are launching our first umbrella of online programs, and we call the business that side of the business is called Startup U, like Startup University. And so we're launching a plethora of different programs inside of Startup U that will help entrepreneurs navigate some of the things that I experienced, right? Because I remember telling myself throughout that journey, my gosh, if I had known this 6 months ago, and I got tired of saying that because I said it all the time. Yeah. And I was like, we've got to provide resources at large, at scale for people, but also too, there's a lot of individual course creators, and I'm not taking any shots at them. I learned from many of them, and some of them are my mentors, but I didn't feel like there was like a name, like a brand name, a Nike, a McDonald's, right? Like a Coca-Cola, like somebody that was like recognized as a big name that was a Google that they could go to. So we were trying to, I'm not certainly not putting us in that conversation at all. I just wanted to use them as a north node of what could be for entrepreneurs for information. So eventually we'll have resources that cover a wide variety of different topics and resources, whether it's starting a podcast. Right now, the program we're starting with is our flagship program called Startup Launch Factory, which is literally, how do you do what we did? We've kind of crystallized that now to go through to analyze your market, develop your ideal client avatar, build your first landing page, get your first 100 customers. How do you use data from the market so that you're not taking guesses? Yeah. Because the guesswork of figuring out who your audience is and what they want is what prolongs your struggle, is what keeps you from stuck in your job, not being able to pursue your business full time, and then eventually just saying, well, this is crazy. I can't put in this energy. I'm going back to my job.
Yeah.
So we try to really accelerate the process, help people transition more quickly, more efficiently into starting their own business and then doing it right? So we take you womb to tomb, starting the business, all the way down to validating the idea in the market, to scaling out and hiring your virtual assistant, making your first hire, building company culture, womb to tomb all the way through. So that's going to be our flagship first program we're launching.
Okay.
And then we'll have a variety of other ancillary offers that we continue to offer based on what your specific need is in your business.
You're saying who's involved with you? Are there other people involved with you, or is this your thing that you've got a team that you've built?
No, we've got a full team. Yeah. But I am the founder of the company.
Yeah, okay. But it's not like you and a bunch of founders.
It's a culture habit.
Yeah. No. I like it. I just wanted to clarify for people. First of all, womb to tomb is hilarious. I love that. It's not hilarious. It's funny. I've never heard it before. I've heard so many people talk about these kind of concepts. Womb to tomb is great. I love that, man. So Startup U is the new thing. Where can people go? Is that something that's available to folks to go and see now, or to sign up or pre-register? How's that look?
Yeah, so we did an early bird for Black Friday, and then we've closed that. We did a beta group, so that's closed right now. But we are going to open up a wait list. If people want to take interest in that, they can join my email list, or they can go actually to getstartupu.com, and they can actually join the wait list for that. So when it's launched, you'll have very first access to the program to be able to check it out. And then any of the other Startup U programs, you'll have access to that as well at getstartupu.com.
Okay. Getstartupu.com. And then also you mentioned your podcast. I was on, it's called Entrepreneur Hour. Again,
recently rebranded to Startup U podcast to match the branding for Startup U.
Perfect. And that's already been taking place. That's happened.
Yeah, that's already happened.
Okay. Startup U podcast. Go check that out, guys, because if you can't tell already, Chris is not only an engaging guest, he's a fantastic host. And I've been on a lot of shows. I mean, hundreds of shows over the last few years, and very few hosts impress me. Like, some of them are just fine. They're good. It's a good time, and I have a good conversation.
Sure.
But there are hosts out there, people who do talk like this to a lot of folks who I find incredibly good at what they do, and you definitely are one of them. So people should check that out, because whether or not you're talking about real estate, which I know you're not. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Some of them are real estate. Most of them aren't, quite frankly. And this is one that you guys should be listening to for a number of reasons. So go check that out, not just because I was on it, but because it's great. I have subscribed and I listen to it now. So you're really, really good at what you do. And man, some of these concepts, not some of them, all of these concepts that you've talked about, the health issues, the rapid growth, the breakdown, the things you had to do to kind of keep the glue in place. And really one of the underlying things that you've sort of touched on here quite substantially is this identity crisis you have when you build something where your dream becomes your nightmare because of growth, and people can't let go. And I don't know if that accident hadn't happened on the road, and if your health wasn't bad, how much longer you would have held on and tried to sell your way out of it and raise money that you maybe could or couldn't potentially pay back. People do that, and it wrecks them.
Yeah. The last thing I would say, if you don't mind, I got a quick point that I think is probably the most important thing I'm going to say today. If you don't mind, I'll say it real quickly. I know we're running out of time here. But we know all the X's and O's, we know all the hacks and stuff like that. But here's what I learned throughout this experience. And I just had the most profound conversation this past week that I've had with one of my mentors that I've had in years, Mike, years. And I'm a man of faith. I know you've heard me talk about God and stuff like that throughout this conversation, but whatever you believe in, I think this still applies. So please just insert whatever works for you in this equation. It doesn't have to be what I believe in.
Yep.
But what I learned is that God is the ultimate growth hack. So I have learned to lean into God because whenever I have tried to rely on my own wisdom, whenever I tried to just rely on my own plans, I tell you this, when I left my job and I went to start to grow that business full time, I remember, Mike, I had just become a Christian and I was on fire for it. And every single day on my way to my office, I had these moments where I like literally had conversations with God. And I felt like I was doing something that was going to be profound in the world. I don't think I ever thought about the money. I really don't. I just wanted to do something that had an impact, that I could make an influence and do something really cool and special. And that was when that growth happened. And then I told my mentor, one of my mentors this the other day, I said, and then we had $500,000. Guess what I did? It was all about the money, baby. It was, how do we make 20? How do we do this? How do we do that? And I just said, okay, God, like you can take a back seat. I got it. Right. Yeah. And I just kicked out. And then I'm telling you, like almost instantaneously, like almost, right, was when the bad decisions started to happen. When I started pushing beyond where we were, I didn't trust the plan, the divine plan for my life. I tried to be the driver of my own fate and this and that. And it's important that you work hard. I'm not telling you to sit back and let God just open doors for you and do all the work. That's not going to happen. But there's just something about leaning into God that honestly, I look back now and I say, in a way, I'm envious of that young kid that had no idea what he was doing, because I have all this knowledge, but sometimes the smarter I get, the dumber I get, because I start relying on my own mechanics. I start relying on my own knowledge versus saying, I'm learning a lot, but I'm learning a lot so that I can lean into God to lead my life in ways that only God knows. And I'm just going to be, a hard worker in that process, soldier in that process. So I want to leave people with that, because I think that's such an important part of the conversation that we just don't talk about in entrepreneurship, is that divine aspect of our life and the purpose of our life.
Yep. I can't improve upon that. And I don't want to muddy it with any weird commentary that isn't as good as what you just said. So I appreciate that. It's a great place to end. I could literally talk to you all day because I enjoyed listening to you. I think we think a lot alike, and it's just, we feed off each other. So the conversations are always great. Thank you for doing this, man. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go get one of those Garmins. I wrote it down. It's going to be in the show notes, but I'm going to get one because I think
I love it. Guys, and if you could, before Mike lets me go here, if you do me a quick favor, what Mike does, there's a lot of work and time and sacrifice that goes into this. So if you could do me a huge favor, I promise you, it literally takes 27 seconds to do it. Whatever platform you're listening from, hit subscribe and leave him a quick review. Just say something, anything. Great show, whatever. You don't have to say anything, or you can just hit 5 stars. The reason being is because the platforms like Apple, that's the number one way that you get your show to rank higher. It's not downloads, it's actually subscribers and reviews. So if you could do that, it's like leaving a tip for your waiter. So I would really be eternally grateful to you if you could just help Mike out to do that, for just thank him for providing this content to you in your life for free.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. You're absolutely right. It means everything to us. So thank you again, guys. Go check out the podcast and go to the website. Check out what he's got going on, because this is someone who's been there, done that, gone through the highs and the lows, and has a better perspective. I promise you, it's less about the nuts and bolts than it is about everything else that we talked about today and that he's going to teach you in that course. Guys, go check it out. Chris is the real deal. He knows what he's talking about. Thanks again for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. It's great having you on, and I hopefully we can connect again in the future. I would love to have you on regularly and kind of keep up with what's happening, because I really resonate and I really appreciate your story and what you stand for. So
thanks, Mike. This was fun. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. All right, guys, seriously, now that really hit home with me, because as Chris referenced, I did start a little slower in my real estate business, but we did hit a point of rapid growth. And a lot of the stuff he talked about was something that I experienced. I didn't have the health concerns that he had exactly, but rapid growth, stress, trying to keep things together, not doing everything super smart as we were rapidly growing and having to figure that out and recover. But guys, it's a cautionary tale. We're all trying to be successful. And he mentioned it right at the end, when it all became about money and he wasn't paying attention to his purpose and his spirituality and all that. When it just became about money and he was pushing too hard, that's when things fell apart. So be careful. I want all of you to have immense, crazy success, personal, financial, all of that. but be careful that you don't push so hard that it really affects your life or threatens to take your life away, right? So I love the story. I love the cautionary tale, and it's a good balance between let's go, let's build, and hey, let's make sure that we're going to be alive to see it and enjoy it with our friends, family, and loved ones. So great story, great motivation, and just a great advice from someone who's been at the top of the mountain, so to speak, and crashed all the way down financially and physically and came back from that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that and got a lot of inspiration out of it. I know I did. I think he's just an incredibly smart guy and incredibly inspirational. So get out there though, guys. Get going. Get it started. Be smart. Listen to your body. Push. Be successful. But at the end of the day, we got to be happy too. We got to be around to enjoy it. So be careful about that, but go out and make it happen for yourself today. Take that smart action that leads to the success you want. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Okay, you're still there. You're still listening. That's awesome. And I really appreciate that. Now, hopefully it wasn't an accident. Hopefully you didn't leave the room and I'm just talking to an empty room right now. But assuming you're still there, I want to do something really, really cool for you. For a limited time, I want to give you a free digital download of my book, the entire book, Level Jumping. If you're a listener to the show, you know it just came out, and it really details how I took my business from being like one where I was just doing a few deals a month, maybe 1 or 2 deals a month, to doing over 10 and sometimes 15 deals a month and over 100 a year. And I went from doing very little profit to over $1 million in profit. And I made that transformation in a 12-month period. And this book talks about what I did, the steps I took to transform my business, and how you can too. So grab a free digital download, and you can get that by texting the words "just start" as 2 words now, "just start" to the number 55444. So text "just start" to 55444. I will send you a free digital download of my book. It's the complete book. There's nothing held back, and that'll be completely yours just for making it to the end of the show and listening to me. And I really, really appreciate it, guys. So I want to do something nice for you. I do this every once in a while at the end of shows, and if you listen to the very end, every once in a while, I do a giveaway like this. So hopefully you enjoy that. Go grab a free copy. I hope you read it. I hope you love it. Reach out, let me know what you think. All right, guys, talk to you next time.